Morning.
Good morning.
How was honesty and kindness represented to you in your childhood? And how does it show up for you now as an adult, as a parent, when your kids are either kind or honest out in public and around you? And how does that make you feel? What did you vow to do or not, or vow against when you were a kid? It's a very interesting topic.
Yes, Jo and I often have conversations off camera about these topics, and then we go, this would be a good topic to talk about. But they're very deep topics, and often then we go, oh my goodness, what are we, like we're awakening the sleeping giant within almost, because even myself, when I thought about this topic, I was like, oh, I pride myself on being honest, but in the awakening journey, and I prided myself on like really being the moral police around my children being kind. But it's funny thinking about how I wasn't really very good at being kind to myself. So I was trying to get my children to be kind. So if they ever said anything about anybody, I'd say, oh, you can't say that. You know, we have to be nice about people. But what is all this teaching us that, really, what's the intention behind it? Like a lot of it was coming from my fears, from my embarrassment, from my, wanting to be the moral police. So like a child might say something like, you get a new car, and the child might say, Dad, I think we're rich now because you've got a new car, but because of all of our programming and, oh, you can't be too big for your boots, you can't look like a big noter, you can't be, proud of yourself, because we learnt that growing up. We'll say something like, oh, no, this is just a car, it's nothing special. So what does the child learn from that?
Yeah, and I recall, so with my 3 children in our home, we always, like I suppressed the majority of my emotions. And, we rarely had honest conversations about what was going on in life for us. Like they pretty much had to turn up with a smile on their face and be positive, and all the while, really, I'm lying to myself, lying to them, and also insisting that they tell the truth. Lying's one of the worst things that you can do. So we set up that we have this kind, loving family, and then all of a sudden, out of the blue, throw at our kids that my husband and I are getting divorced. So, like the hypocrisy in that, when I look back, and not being honest with them and thinking I'm doing the right thing by suppressing all the emotions and the truth and think I'm protecting them. But then how darn confusing can that be for a child?
Yeah, so if you're just, it's so true, Jo. If you're just tuning in, we're talking about kindness and honesty, and yeah, it's a big one. Like where did you learn it from as a child yourself is usually then how, until you start doing the work on yourself and realising, as Jo said, how dishonest she was being with herself. How, for me, I feel like I'm being honest with myself. I feel like I'm kind of an oversharer. I'm a over-giver of information. I feel like, I am being honest. But as soon as I'm really honest with myself, like even in my deepest, darkest moments where I'm feeling really, really sad or really, really angry about something, I just can't be kind to myself. It's really, really hard. I kind of go to, well, come on, like. Get a grip. Just get it together. And I suppose to a certain extent that's because as children, that can be the way that I certainly did this to my own children as well. When they would come to me with emotion, I wasn't so good at getting down and saying, okay, so you're feeling sad. I would go straight to, oh, you'll be right, you'll be okay, it's fine, like move on. And so they're learning that that's just how life is. And this is what I was doing to myself as well. And even taking time to kind of be with myself and would bring up a whole lot of guilt. Like I'd feel so guilty if I was relaxing, and if I saw my children relaxing, I would be onto them that they need to get up and do something, because I didn't know how to. I wasn't being honest with myself around that. So here I was. I think I'm being honest with myself, but really, there's so many ways I'm not being honest with myself.
And when we can be honest and like in the present moment with a child who is going through some heavy emotions, some big emotions that they need support with, if we can be in that moment with them, kids have this brilliant opportunity to move through emotion very, very quickly if they're supported. It's us going like I did, same as Ilka. I never rarely let my kids have their emotion and have me be with them and support them. I'm like straight to the solution without like get over it kind of thing. Yeah. But if I had have been able to just support them in those moments, like they would have moved through it so quickly. And they don't do this thing where they cut off that little piece of themselves in that moment, and because they know that they're not comfortable to express it, and then those little pieces add up over time, which eventually see us sitting with a therapist going, what the fuck?
Yeah, so the money one is a classic example. When a child says something like, "Oh, we're rich now, Mum," and the child's intention behind that is good, like it's joyful. It's they feel amazing about having a new car, and yet we might be feeling like we just want to fit in, and we don't want anyone to look at it and think like we're big noting ourselves. So again, we put that onto our children, and what does that do? That's like all of a sudden Mum and Dad are not happy with me being excited about having a new car. And so then that can set up a lifelong pattern of it's not safe to feel excited about life. You've got to suppress yourself, you've got to not big note yourself, and you can't...
Not be happy.
Not be happy. Not have things. Having things is not, not safe. It'll upset Mum and Dad. And I mean, that's just one example, because money tends to bring up lots of things inside of people, but there's many other examples.
Like
talking about weight.
Your siblings
weight.
With with weight, but also with like if you won a race or if you played really well, and the child comes off and is excited, or like, I won, yay, and we immediately diminish them by saying, whoa, hang on a minute, like your brother runs really well as also, or that second kid wasn't far behind you.
Yes, we have to do that.
To just like bring them down, like they just want to. It's we place our perception of their excitement, like oh my gosh, they're too big for their boots, when it's just when the child is just naturally vibrant and joyful and happy, and we're crushing that in them slowly with little powerful words.
Yeah. And then there's the other one, like they might say something to you, point something out to you, like, oh, Daddy thinks you need some more rest, Mum. And for me, that would have been like a red flag to a bull, because I would have immediately, back before I did all the work on myself, I would have gone to, oh, Dad thinks I'm lazy, I'm not working hard enough. And now I'm mad. And my child is just being honest and kind, and probably my husband is too, but I take it completely the wrong way, and and my child sees me get angry and doesn't know why. And so then the children are learning like, I shouldn't say that because Mum gets angry about that, when they're just trying to be honest. So children, I mean, from talking about this, you can see that our lives can be very confusing as a child, because we're watching our parents' reactions to things, and often they're not what we expect, because children are being honest and kind from a good intention, and yet we're taking it the wrong way. So
It's
the importance of doing the work on yourself.
Yeah.
So
And
important.
And letting them have their say, their point of view, without placing all our stuff from our own childhood that we haven't healed yet, that we've attached our identity to, and when they're often just being honest and their intent is good.
Yeah. And so, Jo, can you talk a bit about like the change now? Like once we've done the inner work on ourselves and like cleared up a lot of the times when we were kids where we, felt really hurt or like what's the difference? Because people might be watching this and going, well, why? What do you mean? Like, isn't that how life is? And yet what we are showing people how to do every week in our courses and whatever is to let go of the times where honesty was perhaps unaccepted by a parent, or your own kindness as a child was unaccepted by a parent, and we let go of the hurt and the pain around that. And so then on the other side of that, what happens with our kids then? Like what's the difference? Because we came to this work very late in life, and we've got these beautiful mums doing our courses that are coming to this work when their children are young. They are like every day I just take my hat off to them, because they come to the calls with their babies in arms, and they're letting go of this stuff that triggers them, that keeps them stuck, that keeps them in this cycle of responding to their children in a way they don't want. They hear themselves say things and they don't want to say that. But we came to it late, so our children are kind of older, but there is a massive difference now in how we relate to our kids, even though they're older. So do you want to talk about that?
Especially now that they're getting into their own relationships. So things are showing up for them, and they can actually tell me stuff. And I don't go into those patterns that I went into in the past. And I can feel hurt inside me sometimes, because often they're telling me stuff that is a complete reflection of how I mothered them. And, now I can talk to them about the programming and how in the first 6-7 years of our lives, we really develop a strong sense of self based on what's been shown to us by our parents and our environment in those first really important years. So when they can tell me this stuff and I don't react and go into my triggers and make it about them, so that they are responsible for my feelings. This is a huge one. That's what I did in the past. Like, keep your stuff suppressed so that I don't have to feel.
Yeah. And then they can often then feel, even though we think they're not doing this because we're in total denial to it, children do feel responsible for their parents' feelings. And even if you think they don't know you're in the bathroom crying, they'll tell you when they're 20s that they knew you were in there.
Yeah.
Like all these things we don't think they know. Well, for me, I used to know. I used to sense when things were going on. So if there wasn't people, I felt like people weren't being honest with me, I would get really angry about that as a child.
So now they just that they can share stuff with me and we can have a conversation, and I don't need to yell to get my point across, and it can remain a fairly balanced conversation where neither of us feel responsible for the other one's emotions. And you can have your emotions, you can cry and get angry and move through it, just like they could have done very quickly when they were little, and I could have done very quickly when I was little, if the people around me knew this stuff. But it's relatively new stuff, new information.
Yeah, it's really new information. I was listening to a guy last night who's been, doing this transformational process with the, like a big thing at the moment is getting into the psychedelics and going into these states where you can like see the world from a different perspective and perhaps see your parents. Now we do all that every day in the work that I do. We're asking people to go into memories from the past. We don't use psychedelics to do it, but it's kind of a trend at the moment because everybody's seeing that this is the work that has to be done. This is that you have to move through where the hurts and pains and wounding is, so that you're not projecting it onto your kids. And when they tell you the car's awesome, you can say, yeah, it is awesome that we've got a new car, isn't it? It's fantastic, because you can be proud of yourself and be kind and loving to yourself and be proud of who you are in the world, and that's okay.
And the thing that often stops us from going there, going to that deep emotion, like we can get close to it, but is the protection, the not wanting to feel those feelings, and the shame and guilt that we've developed around these little things. Well, they're not always little things, but they grow over time, with every time we get close to them, adding another layer of shame and guilt. And like, I can't go there, I can't face it. But when we can push through and get to the deep emotion, it can actually clear up really, really quickly. Like 30 years of pain for me was cleared up in a 2-hour session.
Yes.
Shame, deep shame.
Deep shame, yes. And I was working with one of our beautiful parents yesterday, and she was saying, Ilka, I know that it's what I'm seeing in my child is really about me, but this time I just can't find it. I don't think it is this time. And I mean, we always think this. And so it took quite a bit of digging, because she kept saying to me, oh, I just feel so much resistance to going there. And which is beautiful. I mean, that's a beautiful thing to say, as opposed to, I don't want to do this, you know. So she just kept saying that, and I kept asking questions and digging around and asking more questions and going a bit deeper, and finally the tears came, big tears. And we found like an 8-year-old memory where she had felt exactly the same way that she was, when we really picked it at what it was all about. It was exactly how she's projecting her son is feeling a certain way, which he's probably not, you know, because he's actually okay. And we got to an 8-year-old memory where, yeah, she did feel all this hurt and this pain, and it was complete, like, it was so correlated with what she was seeing in him, and she knew we'd got there. And she goes, oh, that took a bit today. Because sometimes we don't want to see that it's about us. We want to make it about the other person. We want to be able to control the other person too. Like, if we just could control them, then life will be better. And we do this with our kids all the time, particularly around this. We think we're helping them by being the moral police. You know, if we just tell them to be nice, they'll be okay. If we just make sure they do their homework, they'll be okay. If we just, you know,
yeah.
But I know, yeah.
So perhaps if we give you some ideas, a tip on what to look out for in future, like when your child is being honest to you, like, just notice what's going on inside you. If you can go to noticing what's going on inside you before responding, and recognizing that, yes, oh wow, if I were to say that, I may just be coming from my own stuff, my own painful past, and to be in the present moment and just be with the child and not bring my stuff into it.
And notice in that moment, because this is about being kind and honest with yourself. And a person I follow, she always says, what would a loving person say to themselves? What would a loving person do? And that's a good question to ask, because by saying that, it gets the brain to look for something that would be kind and loving. And if you're having trouble finding that, that's because, you know, there's a part of you that doesn't know how to find a kind and which was me in the beginning. I didn't know how to I didn't get how to be kind to myself. and how to say kind things to myself. Yeah, so that was something I had to learn how to do, and I'm sure, like we always say, that's what my brain thinks. I mean, there was many ways I was being kind to myself, but I couldn't find those. I couldn't see them. I couldn't even see the ways I was doing it. I just kept thinking in the beginning. I didn't know, like someone said, be self-loving, Ilka, and this word had no meaning to me whatsoever. But I get what that means now. But it's been a process to get to really understanding that. It is a process. Yeah. Even though you can make massive shifts in, like Jo said, in a 2-hour session, and for me too, the shame was the biggest thing in the beginning, to let go of the shame.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it is possible. Honesty and kindness together is possible.
Yes, and I think that you can't really have one without the other. Yeah. So if you're struggling with being honest, then got to look at that and become aware of that. If you're struggling with being kind, ask yourself, what would an honest person do? What would a kind person do?
Yeah. Cool. Thanks for
and
being
otherwise,
with
come
us.
along and keep listening and learning. Because we share these videos every Wednesday. We'll be back again. If you have any questions, please put them in the comments, or any experiences with kindness or honesty you want to share that you'd like some clarification about, then we're happy to answer as well.
And so this is live in the private group, but if you see something in here and you'd like to share it, or if you have friends who could benefit from this information, it'll be shareable from the business page.
Yeah, and Instagram.
And Instagram.
And YouTube.
And YouTube. Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks for
Awesome.
joining us.
All right,
have a great week.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.